Can you imagine being a young mother, literally breastfeeding a baby, trying to start a business, and then finding out that you have cancer? That's exactly what happened to today's guest, Erica Carrico. And what she did from that is incredible. The way that she took a tragic situation in her life and completely turned her life around to become an amazingly successful, wealthy single mom entrepreneur inspiration made me realize that I had to interview her. And so I am so excited for you to hear my conversation with Erica Carrico. Enjoy. Welcome to Seekers and Shifters, where we talk to the world's foremost experts in personal growth and development and ask them everything we really want to know. Hey there, Seekers and Shifters. It's your host, Michelle, and I am here with my new friend, Erica. Erica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Erica Carrico, and I'm kind of a combination of a life purpose coach and a business coach. So I help women to discover what their life purpose is and start a business that's aligned with their purpose. And then, scale it all the way to 6 figures to 7 figures, wherever you want to take it. I got you.
I love it. And we do similar work. We have a lot in common. I do the same thing. I work with men, women, and thems, whoever wants to do it. But but we do the same thing. We were actually put in touch by my social media guru, Angel, and she said, you have to have Erica on the podcast. You two have so much in common. So is that what she told you to?
That's what she told me too. She's like, she just said, I want you to meet my friend, Michelle. I think there's a lot that you have in common. I think you would have a great conversation. And then the rest is history. So here we are.
And here we are having a great conversation already. So we're comfortable on camera. We're just going to hit record. We're going to go. And so we're getting to know each other in front of you all.
We are. Yeah. Why not?
Why not? It's my favorite way to do it. You know, we've got I think we have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube now. It's it's pretty low stakes. It's like, and we love you. 1,000 subscribers. We love you so much. And, I don't get too stressed out about what we do or say on the show because it's not like we're not Oprah yet.
Yeah. Billions of people here at the moment.
So it's fine. It's just like you and I basically having a coffee chat, but we're doing it on camera. I want to start with this concept that we share in our work, which is, yes, I can help you grow a business and make lots of money. And we're not doing that if it doesn't support the life you want. First, we're figuring out what life you want. Then we're creating a business as a vehicle to that life, because so often, if you don't do that intentionally, it goes in the opposite order. And I know you've seen it too, Erica. I've seen so many people make so much money and just stay miserable because it didn't support the life they wanted. Tell me about where did you come to this life first, business second philosophy?
Well, mine actually came from a cancer diagnosis.
Oh.
I was 36 and breastfeeding a baby, and I had a toddler at home, and I was working as the executive director of a not-for-profit organization. And before that, I had come from corporate. I was in the corporate world for almost a decade and just, was extreme burnout, depression, anxiety, the whole bit. And I thought that by doing something that I loved and by moving into the not-for-profit sector, that would cure all for me. And I think there was an element of, it was different in that I was helping people and making a difference in the world, but I was still building somebody else's dream and I was earning nothing, right? Like I took a 6-figure salary cut to go from corporate into the not-for-profit space. And then I was diagnosed with cancer. And it was like, okay, this is a real moment where I don't even know if I'm going to live. I don't know if I'm going to die. I have these kids. My marriage is falling apart. My life felt like this complete train wreck. And it was like, okay, God, if I am going to live, then, I'm going to live the rest of my life truly living in alignment with who I am. And so I went on this real spiritual healing journey. And, that was almost 10 years ago. And I feel like I'm still on the journey, but really letting go of everything in my life that was no longer serving me and really building it up with everything that did. And so my life has been very intentionally created now, where there's no point in slaving away in your own business or in a 9-to-5 if you don't love it. And if it's not in alignment with why you're here. Like, I don't think we came here as souls to wake up every day and hate our freaking life. Like, what is the actual point? And I think that that's where so much anxiety and depression and dis-ease come from, autoimmune disorders. I mean, there's so much that we experience as humans today. And I think so much of that is because we hate what we do. And I think so many of us are forced into reality where get a job, get the benefits, whatever, like save for retirement. And we just kind of go through the motions. And then we wind up in our 40s completely miserable and we wonder why,
Yeah, 100%. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes that rock bottom moment for us to go, oh my God, I want to do everything differently. It can be, obviously super traumatic. It can also be a blessing in that, like, oh, there was a catalyst in my life. Whereas other people sit and they go, oh, I'm kind of uncomfortable, but I don't know if I want to change it. Is it fine? Should I stay in this marriage? Like, I've kid, whatever.
Right. Which was me until cancer. And then it was like, well, I can't do this because I'm going to die if I do. If I stay here, I will die.
Yeah. It's like life's too short. And you had that moment. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I'm curious, when you started your personal growth journey, because a lot of people listening to this and watching this, they're just at the beginning of starting their own growth journey. What was the first thing you got into? Like, what was your gateway drug?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Oh, well, I guess I had always kind of been into it. Like my major was in psychology and I was always, I read The Power of Now in like 2005. So I was always kind of on the edge of it. But I think for me, I actually dove straight into how can I start a business? What is my life purpose? Why am I here? What is my medicine? That was sort of where I spent a lot of time. What are my natural gifts? What do I really love doing? And sort of diving into spirituality, I think was kind of first for me, and reconnecting with source or God or divine or higher power, whatever that is, and just getting that guidance back in my life.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to sometimes identify like where's that one moment, because I might say, oh, I got really into Abraham Hicks in my 20s, but it's like, but also before that I did a Landmark, and like that was life-changing for me. And to your point, I grew up religious. I grew up in the Bible Belt in Southern Oklahoma, surrounded by Christian doctrine. I'm now in the midst of converting to Judaism, but I did grow up with that religious influence in my life. And whether I felt that, was liberating or stifling at different points of my childhood, it was always a thing. There was always a prayer. You could always talk to God. And so I think that's where it started for me, just always having a connection and then saying, okay, I want to explore more about what this means or what we can actually do with it, how we can play with it, right?
Right. Absolutely. Well, and I've seen so many, you probably as well. I mean, I've seen thousands, tens of thousands of people try and start businesses. And I guess the times that I've really seen it work, obviously people build companies not aligned with their purpose just for the sake of creating money and whatever. But in the space that I'm in, I've only seen it work when somebody has that higher guidance. They're doing it for a reason greater than just themselves and what it can create in their lives. Like, yes, creating financial freedom, time freedom, that's amazing. Creating millions of dollars is amazing, but really only I've seen people, one, make it work, and two, truly be fulfilled when it is aligned with something higher, right? Something greater than themselves. Like they have a mission outside of just their earthly why.
Yeah, it's definitely that second part of like, this is what it takes to be fulfilled, is to be looking at that why. You can certainly make money in a lot of it without having that purpose or that why, but you're just not super happy. Like in my experience, people I've seen do that, they're not super happy, or they've got a few $1 million and other people are looking at them and going, man, I would kill to have what you have in the bank. And they're just like, yeah, but money doesn't buy happiness. I'm burnt out. I lost my marriage. I don't talk to my kid either.
Right. Yeah.
Not worth
Definitely.
it.
No, agree.
So we love money, but we love money when it helps you live your higher purpose and be fulfilled. Yeah. I'm curious because you kind of left us there on a cliffhanger of the story. I was in a marriage and I was breastfeeding and I got cancer. Yeah. And then what happened, Erica? What did you decide to do?
Yeah, all of it. I left my marriage. I left my career. I started my business.
What did you do?
Yeah, all of it. I left my marriage. I left my career. I started my business. And I did not choose traditional Western medicine to treat my cancer. I did have surgery, but I did not do any chemo or radiation. I kind of realized, if my body created this, there's a reason why. And my body will either create this again or continue to create this until I address the root cause. And my body can also uncreate it. And so my cancer has not recurred, but I think that that's from doing all of the things that I've done in my life and making all of the changes that I've made.
Yeah. What did you do holistically?
I think, well, diet was a big thing. Sleep was another. I was obviously the mom of a baby and a toddler, and I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. So I started really prioritizing like naps during the day. From a diet perspective, I spent almost 2 years. I cut out everything that was like not going to heal my cells. So I stopped eating meat. I stopped eating sugar. I stopped eating dairy. I didn't eat any processed foods. I really ate a living diet. So for 2 years, I had green juices. I juiced organic vegetables, 2 or 3 times a day. I had a lot of smoothies. So really eating a lot of like nuts, whole foods, really alive whole foods for 2 years, and prioritized sleep. I got really into Kundalini yoga as well, a lot of prayer, meditation, and doing a lot of the personal development work of, starting to, I guess, pull my energy out of that marriage and preparing myself to leave. And I went and got my life coaching certification and started my business as well. And all those things sort of started happening over the course of 2 years. And within a couple of years, I was already earning multiple 6 figures in my business. I had quit my job. The divorce took a little longer for a few different reasons, but COVID hit and I was like, no, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. So I was out in 2020, I believe. And then that was ironically the year that my business also hit $1 million in revenue, was when I left my marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. We had, and I say we, my colleagues and I, who coach entrepreneurs, we had so many people going through our courses to grow their businesses and do personal growth, and then end up getting divorced, that we had to stop and say, are we doing this? Are we doing a bad thing? This is what we were trying to help people like make money and have the life they want. Everybody's getting divorced. And then we had to go back and examine it case by case. And it's like, okay, this woman left, frankly, abusive husband. These two people weren't aligned anymore. Like this one left her wife, and like her wife hadn't been treating her well. And it was like people were realizing, even when we started with something like pricing your services more, like owning your value in a business way, and they would translate and say, well, I'm not owning my value at home. Actually, I had a client, a gay man who was like only dating straight men who were in the closet.
Oh my gosh.
And he was not feeling good about himself and, putting himself out, and he did the work and was like, I'm devaluing myself over here too. And we were like, well, yeah, we don't coach on that, but yeah, you are.
It's so true. I think when building a business, and you probably say this too, it's like the best personal development journey you could ever go on. I mean, I think 1 year of building a business is like 10 years of therapy. And so when you're in a marriage that's not working and you start to all of a sudden grow and do your work and you're expanding and evolving, all of a sudden, if this person's not doing that as well, it's like you just start growing apart. And I think you have a different vision for your life than you did before. And I know my ex-husband ended up finding a girlfriend that is literally like who I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, he just didn't want this. He wanted this. And that's where he's at now. And we're way over here. So it's like, I think you just start to really recognize the differences in between, you and your former partner or your current partner.
Yeah. And it's okay. Right. And it's
totally.
I think so many people wrap divorce up in, we have to blame, this person or that person, or did somebody cheat, or did somebody hit, or did somebody steal money, or, what happened, versus, hey, it's okay if we went on different paths and like maybe our paths walked together for 10 or 15 years and maybe the divorce, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be somebody's fault. And like, he's perfectly entitled to be married to whoever he wants to be married to.
1,000,000%. It's just compatibility. And, if you find yourself in a marriage and it's holding you back, that's not good for you either. And that was kind of where we were. And I knew if I wanted to grow my life and my business in a way that felt aligned with me, that relationship and that container was no longer for me. Right. And I think like by liberating yourself, you're liberating all souls involved. And he's much happier, I'm sure, as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Right. And the new wife and everybody else. Right. And the kids are probably happier, having happier parents. And I do want to talk about something that we haven't really talked about on this show that you just brought up, which is when you're an entrepreneur, especially a solopreneur, it feels really good to start making all of your own choices about what to do with your business and your money. And then we have a little bit of friction. And one of the friction points comes in where now my business gets so big that I want to have business partners or work with other people again. And I'm not used to doing that. But then another friction point is in my marriage, especially in the beginning, is this business mine to make decisions about? Is this community property and we're making decisions? And I don't know about you, but I have clients all the time where if they have a supportive spouse, it's like rocket fuel for the business. But if they have somebody that's questioning them and like, you're not making enough money yet, when are you going to get a job? And it's this whole joint thing, it can really keep people down. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs end up getting divorced just because it feels so good to do what we want with our own fucking money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that was why my business didn't grow. I mean, I have a lot of clients that are like, I don't want my business to grow because I know that I want to get divorced and I don't want that other person to like take my money. And I know subconsciously I wasn't growing my business because I knew I was going to have to like give half of that away. Right. So, I mean, literally the year that I left was the year my business went to $1 million. And I think it was because of that exact reason.
Yeah. It's just like, look, I don't know about you. I when I walked away, and I'd already been in business for years and the business was doing those kind of numbers. And it was like, look, I also had a lot of business debt through COVID, et cetera. And I was like, look, I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to take all the debt, even though it was like jointly signed debt. I'll take it all on and you're going to give up rights to the business. And this may be really stupid or it may be really brilliant. And we're about to find out.
Girl, that is wild. We have a very similar story. Same. I gave him everything, the house, the 401k, the investment accounts. And I was like, just give me my business. Just give me my business is all I want.
Yeah. Just let me go and let me do what I know I can do. Yeah. And so a lot of us entrepreneurs end up single or then we try to repartner with somebody. And then there's a whole other layer. I don't know what you're doing because I just met you. I don't even know what your romantic situation is.
I'm still single, but dating somebody. This is the first sort of real relationship I think I've been in I have been in since divorce, but it's still new. I think we're like 9 months in and navigating all of the things, right? Like it's definitely a whole new world.
When you've built something on your own and then you're starting to navigate, how do I want to do this with somebody else? So you get to a certain age and you go, well, maybe it's just all prenups and everybody keeps their own stuff, or maybe there's a different way to do it. I'm now playing on a level extra hard, which is I am partnered with someone else who's an entrepreneur. So so that's always fun.
I think I've thought, so that's really interesting because I've often thought of that. So I've tried to I've tried to date people that have had jobs. And then especially if they don't like their job, it's like, that's never going to work. That's absolutely never going to work because I can't even relate to where you are right now. So the guy that I'm dating right now, he does have a quote unquote job, but he's a musician as well. So he's a songwriter, singer, performs as his own thing. So he kind of has his own thing. But yeah, I almost wonder if an entrepreneur could actually be with somebody who was in a 9-to-5. Like, I just think that it's a completely different life.
Yeah, it's hard. I think, especially when I've struggled dating people who had jobby jobs and like needed, months in advance to take a vacation.
I know.
You're like, okay, I have gotten spoiled and used to a certain amount of like geographic freedom, et cetera. Obviously, I'm still co-parenting my youngest. My oldest is an adult now, which is exciting. Okay. Yeah. But my youngest is still at home and I'm still co-parenting. So I do need to be in Alexandria, Virginia about 50% of the time. But the other 50% of the time, if I don't have him, like if y'all follow me on social media, like I'm on a plane, I'm somewhere else. Yeah. And I need to be with someone who can come with me half the time.
Right. I know. It's a thing. I think the dating pool gets very small when you're an entrepreneur. And when you're a successful entrepreneur, it gets even smaller, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think that's another small percentage of the world.
Yeah. And especially women entrepreneurs, and the percentage of women entrepreneurs who make over $1 million in their business is minuscule. So you're in very rarefied air, listeners. You're welcome to be with us.
Right. Exactly. It's true.
It's true. And there are some that would say, at least in a heterosexual context, that there are men sometimes, that are intimidated by successful women. That's never bothered me, just because I was just never interested in anyone who wasn't interested in me.
Same, exactly. That's never been a thing for me either. Like, whatever. So, yeah.
Please don't consciously or unconsciously hamstring yourself because you're afraid dudes won't like you. I promise you, dudes will still like you. And girls will still like you. Whoever you want to like you will still like.
Exactly. And cool ones too will also, which is fun.
Well, because they're going to see somebody who's done something. And it's like, I don't know about you, but like I get so inspired by anyone who's set a big goal and achieved it, whether it's an entrepreneur, if somebody's winning like a bikini building, bodybuilding contest, I'm just like, good for you. Like amazing that you set your mind to that and did it. The people who are famous artists, musicians, etc. Like I get real choked up over that stuff.
Yeah, same. It's like you are turning your life, you're not settling for normal. You're turning your life into what you want it to be. And you're going for it and you're making it happen. And I think that's pretty epic.
These are the people that inspire us. It's funny because now thinking about the gateway drug into personal growth, one thing that I always loved to do even when I was a kid, like as long as I could remember, was read biographies of famous people and people who really made it, and study them and say, okay, how did you get from here to there? It's interesting how much of that is sometimes can seem like luck or circumstance versus, there's some where it's just like dogged determination and it's incredible. Like, I mean, the story I'm sure of Sylvester Stallone and all the things he did to get Rocky. But like sometimes it's like that. And you're like, this dude sold his dog. He sold his dog.
I know. Well, and like Oprah, there's a story out there where she heard 11,000 no's. Like she was rejected over 11,000 times before she finally got her first job as a news anchor. Like it's just, you think that people are overnight successes. And I think what a lot of people don't talk about is the years behind that, the rejection behind that, and the amount of times that they had to get back up and continue to put themselves out there over and over and over again.
Yes. And psychologically and also financially, right? As entrepreneurs, like we have to learn how to get past being terrified to take financial risk, because if you want to blow up a business, especially if it's growing fast, you're borrowing money, you're taking risk.
You're investing money to coaches, mentors, consultants, team. Like I'm sure you have a high overhead. I mean, I know for me, I tell people this all the time, like I probably have between $80,000 and $90,000 a month going out before anything comes in. Like I pay my team, I pay for advertising, I pay my coach. $80,000 goes out before anything comes in. And you have to build that muscle.
There's a huge difference between what my business makes and what I make.
Oh yeah, that's true. 100%. You're less profitable at the higher. I think your take home is less at the higher level than it is when you're a solopreneur, like earning 20, 30,000 a month and you're taking that whole thing home. That's a different ballgame too.
Yeah. I don't ever want to take that home because I'm paying taxes on that. I'd rather invest that in things that grow money and stay in the, buying houses with the business.
Yep, that's what I do too.
I'll pay the taxes.
So much in common.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm a money nerd. We can nerd all the way out on money.
How fun.
Yeah. I'm considering actually starting to take, I'm going to say this out loud, then it's going to have to happen because everyone's going to hear that I said it. But I'm considering taking my Series 65 and just getting some of those certification stacked so that I can actually advise people. Because right now I'm going, well, I can't tell you exactly what to do, but anecdotally,
it's probably not a bad idea. Yeah, you might as well.
I would do.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like building personal wealth is still something that we don't talk about a ton in entrepreneurship. And you'll recognize this because you're in that same online coaching space that I am. But for many years, it was just revenue numbers. And people are putting like pictures of their Stripe account, like things that, gauche. Like, how much money I made. And at no point are they talking about, here's the profit I took home.
Right.
Here's how much it cost me to make this much money.
Right.
Here's what I did outside of my business because this business may not last forever. So here's where I bought some property or where I bought some, did some angel investing or whatever. Nobody's talking about the rest of it. But the people who get really wealthy are doing all the above.
Right. They're doing all of the above. And I think it's actually important. I love that you mentioned that because there's actually this woman right now and I'm getting hit with all of her ads. And she's like, I had my first $2 million month. And it's like, okay, you're going to send a lot of people into a spiral. People are going to invest in your things. They're not going to have anywhere near that success. And you're just like, I think people get so caught up in that they're taken advantage of. And then they don't get the results when they invest in that kind of a whatever. It's like, I think people aren't doing their due diligence by showing, okay, behind the scenes, what is happening? What is her profit? What is her tax burden? What does her team look like? What does she spend in ad spend? What is outgoing as opposed to, she's not pocketing 2 million. I can tell you that. And it would be very hard for a new person to come in, replicate what she's teaching and have a $2 million month. Like it's like the industry is a little bit skewed sometimes. You got to be careful.
For sure. And I can assure you as a business coach, everybody listening, nobody is doing $2 million a month on their own in little activities.
Agree. Amen.
Not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying you might have to skirt the law or some of your moral values in order to do it. I see people who are very determined and can bust ass can sometimes make $1 million with no team and often are sacrificing a lot of work-life balance to even do that. That's about the ceiling.
Yeah. I don't even think I think I hired the majority of my team when I hit about 35,000 and then wanted to scale from there. Cause I was also a single mom and I just don't have the time or the headspace. So I think that was when I started bringing my team on board. And I don't know about your team, but I have almost 13 now that work for me. So I do have high overhead, but it gives me the time to, be with my kids when I need to be with them. And it gives me the opportunity to hire in my home. So I hire heavily in my business and my home so that I can do everything with my kids. I can take them to school at 9:00. I can pick them up at 3:30 and I don't work. I take them to all their activities. I don't work on weekends, right? Like, I think you have to pick and choose and design your business, which goes back to how we started this conversation, designing your business how you want it to be. And that looks different for everybody.
Yeah. Sometimes that's about diving into the nuance of what you want and need in your life, because it can be daunting. For example, we'll use the parent example, and we've both been, single moms. It can be daunting to be like, I need to do everything for my kids. And so I have to build a business around that, versus getting a little more granular with it. I remember I had this moment where I was getting overwhelmed, but when both of my boys were smaller, and I realized, I don't need to cook the dinner every night. I want to eat dinner with them, but somebody else could cook it.
Yes.
Or I don't need to take them to every practice. I want to be at the baseball game. I want to be at the concert, the recital. Both my kids are musicians, right? But I don't need to be sitting in every single lesson listening to you like squeak out on the trumpet when you're 8 years old, right?
Right.
What are the things that are really important versus what are the things that I can outsource and somebody else can do? And we do this, in the business as entrepreneurs too. Let's get into the team thing. We don't get to do a lot of entrepreneurship talk on this podcast, and I want to.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's where the nerd I am. Okay, so when it comes to team members can really make or break your business. And I don't know about you, but I have had, this was probably my hardest area growing business, was growing the right team. I think in the beginning, sometimes it can be tough just because it's hard to convince anybody to come work for you. Like, you're like, I'm just doing my new little thing. You want to quit your really stable corporate thing and come work for me? And they're like, no, because I'm not crazy, right? Like, I'm going to keep making $200K and getting my healthcare pay, So at first you're kind of taking what you can get. And I definitely fucked up by hiring friends in the beginning. Did you?
Interesting. You know what? I've never hired friends. No,
Good.
I never hired friends. I did never do that. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. I don't think I have friends that would have fit the space, So it probably wasn't really an option for me.
I got myself really caught up in the identity of a job creator that was paying really well, that was providing benefits, et cetera. And those were all things I was very proud of when my business first started making money. And then what had happened was a friend would come along and just be like, I really need a job. And I was like, there's so many things, when you're an entrepreneur, it's like, there's so many different jobs here. And I'm doing everything from sweeping the floors to creating the courses to it's like, of course we can find you something to do. I need help. You need a job. And I would just plug people in instead of doing, the real diligent process of what roles do we need? Let me find someone that fits the role. I've learned this over time, how to do this correctly, but I had to learn it the hard way. And man, I lost a bunch of money, borrowing money to cover payroll for folks who were not moving the business forward and holding on to them for way too long.
I know. Yeah. Team. The last coach I worked with, she said it literally took her 9 years to learn through her team, to feel like she finally got to the point where she had kind of mastered who she needs to have in her business. It also took her 9 years to figure out, and this is something that I'm learning, is you need culture and you need skill set. You can't have someone that fits the culture and doesn't have the skill set. And you can't have someone that has a skill set and doesn't fit the culture. They have to have both. And I think that's something that, is a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. So you never made any hiring mistakes? Everybody was amazing?
No, I've definitely made hiring mistakes.
You can tell us. There's only 1,000 people listening. It's okay.
Yeah, right. I know. No, I have definitely made hiring mistakes. And I think too, right? When they're not quite right and you're like, well, maybe we can make this work. But I think kind of like you, where I make the most mistakes is I probably keep people on that shouldn't be longer than they should. That's probably my biggest team mistake. And I struggle with that because it's once they're there, you want them to get better and you want to nurture them and you want to give them all these chances. And I really suck at being a boss. I really actually suck at it. I'm not good at it at all.
I feel like I've gotten a lot better, but it was rough for a while. Like that was the hardest part for me. I was so proud of myself, and it's been a few years now, but I finally did the thing where I hired a guy, and it was very apparent from the very beginning that it was the wrong hire, bad fit, and I let him go after 2 months, and that was horrible to do. It was horrible to do because he had left his stable job that he'd had for years to come work for me, et cetera, et cetera. And it was, yeah, like I didn't want to have to do that. And it was my fuck up. I hired the wrong person for that job. And I knew within a week.
Oh,
that I had hired. It was a sales job.
Yep.
And I was trying to train him, teach him, okay, yes, you left your other job. Like you have a family to support. I'm going to try to help. And then, a couple of months in, he comes and says, so, we coach startup entrepreneurs. That's what my company does. And he came in and he said, I was at a networking event. And I was like, oh, did you meet anybody interesting? He's like, yeah, nobody for us. These were just all a bunch of small business owners. And I was like, well, yeah, I can't. We have to do, sorry. You can't work there anymore.
Oh my gosh, I cannot.
I mean, he hates me. Like he went apoplectic, of course, and was, me and other senior members of my staff were getting diatribes from him. And like, I get it. I've been fired. It sucks.
Yeah.
I'm sure he does not listen to this podcast because I'm sure I am enemy number one to him and his life.
Probably. Yeah. I'm not going to go back and do a deep dive into your content now.
But I was so proud of myself because, me of a couple of years before that would have just kept him on. And it's almost like what that sunk cost is like, well, if I hired you, then I can make it work.
I know. Right. Yeah. And sometimes you just can't. Is it Tony Robbins who says, hire slow and fire fast?
A lot of people say that, and it's right.
I think I heard it at one of the Tony Robbins, and it is great. Yeah. Was Tony one of your big gateway drugs? Tony, surprisingly, no. I went to Unleash the Power Within in 2019, and that was the only thing I did. But that was enough to kind of like catapult me into the space of leaving my marriage and being ready to really grow my business. Learning how to shift my energy in that way.
I've never been to one of those events, and I want to just because there's so many people that go.
Yeah,
and
it's worth it.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm imagining just what it feels like to be in an energy of like, thousands of people sitting there?
Yeah, I think at mine, there was like 15 to 20,000. It was in some kind of stadium in Dallas. It was insane. Yeah, it was definitely a pivotal moment for me, for sure. I would highly recommend it. And that's one of the cheaper ones. It's like $700. It's not one of the like $10,000 programs. It's like a cheap one. And you go for 5 days and you come out a different person.
Wow. And he's certainly got the more expensive things if you want to go down the
Yeah, you can invest. He's got like $150,000 program.
Yeah.
He's got, I mean, you can go down the rabbit hole. That's sort of like his
or
entry.
Whatever. The Lions or whatever.
Yeah.
He's got like Lions or somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, and it's fascinating to think about a stadium full of 20,000 people, and if all 20,000 people are shifted in some way, and then they go out into the world, what happens from there?
Right. What's the ripple effect that's created? Yeah.
Well, that's the kind. And I'm going to ask you about this too, because that's the kind of thing where I think, oh man, I would like to challenge myself to get on bigger stages or with bigger platforms because you can have such a much bigger impact that way. And I am just telling myself a little bit here, I'm a little bit in my comfort zone right now of like doing my podcast, and I'm working with, I have plenty of clients, and we do like small retreats where we have like 4 to 10 people in a retreat. And I love training that way because we can do so much. We get to know everybody and we can tailor what we're doing to the people in the room. And then it's like, I think about, well, what would it be like if I were in the room of, 1,000 people or 20,000 people? And it's like, you have no connection to the person sitting on it's hard for me to get my brain around, right? Like, what's it like to talk to the people in the nosebleed seats and try to make a difference?
Yeah, same. I know. I don't do anything like that either. Most of mine is done through, I think right now in one of my programs, we have like 210, and that's a high touch program, but that's sort of, I don't know. That would stretch me also to be on a stage with like 500 or 1,000 people. For sure. I like the more intimate, being able to, I do the small groups as well, like the 5, the 8, the 10, the 12. And I love that. Just feel like it's, I don't know. I don't know. It's preference. I actually have no desire. I'm thinking I'm kind of just like thinking out loud, but I don't even think I would have the desire to do anything like that. I just don't think that goes back to kind of designing your business. I don't think I'd actually want to get on a stage and speak to 1,000 people. I just don't even think I'd want to.
I tell you what, if I felt like it connected, I mean, even your program with 210 people in it, are you able to connect with all 200 people, or is it just you hire people that then connect with those people? And how does that work?
Yeah. No, you'd be surprised. I mean, they're in there for a year. So over the course of the year, I absolutely get to know the majority of them, especially if they're being active and they're showing up on the Q&A calls and they're talking to me and whatnot. Obviously, if they don't show up on the calls, I don't get to know them. But yeah, we do. And then I do have 3 coaches that do their private coaching sessions as well and do some of the Q&A calls. So I do get to know them while they're in the program if they're making themselves known.
Yeah, my work is similar where I have coaches that are doing the majority of the one-on-ones, but I have no problem jumping on one-on-one with somebody who needs a little bit of my brand of tough love. I tend to hire coaches that are just sweet and nice, and they just are there to give everybody the hug that they need. And I'm here to be like, don't matter your ass.
That's awesome.
So that's what, they need that I go in, but I've been known to, hurt a feeling or two.
Yeah. Well, that's people pay you to coach them, like to give it to them straight. I'm not going to invest in a coach that's going to not tell me what I'm doing wrong or not point out my blind spots or whatever. I mean, that's what we want is someone who's going to get us on the right track and point out our bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a balance between holding space for people and then being able to call out what you see. I tend to, instead of just saying, oh, I'm a coach, I'll say, well, sometimes I'm a coach, sometimes I'm a consultant. Yeah. Sometimes I'm a trainer. And I think about it, coaching, consulting, training in my business because it really is a different hat.
Very much so. Mm-hmm. Very much.
Sometimes I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm switching those hats real quick in the same phone call, and I'll even try to say, okay, I'm going to just do some consulting now. I'm going to tell you.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's my stronger skill set. So I've hired coaches that are more coaches and can do more like of the mindset stuff. Whereas I'm great at strategy and I'm great, but I'm also kind of like, I think building a business is hard. And a lot of people come up against fear, self-doubt, imposter syndrome. They second guess themselves. And I have a really hard time nannying people along. It's like, okay, yeah, that sucks, but just do it. Or, okay, yeah, I'm sure you're afraid of that, but like, get on with it. Like just do it. And my coaches are like, well, honey, you can't talk to people like that. You have to like, whatever. So I am great at strategy and consulting and here's what you need to do. And they're great at like, you're afraid. Okay, let's talk through this. So I'm not as great of a coach as I am a consultant. So I've hired in my blind spots, Yeah.
Well, this is what pushed me down the rabbit hole of really down. I mean, like I was always kind of into it, like we said, but like really down the rabbit hole of learning and getting certified in all these different modalities and nerding out was because I was doing the same thing. I was doing business growth strategy coaching. And it'd be like, oh, we just built you a sick forecast model that tells you exactly when to borrow money, exactly when to hire people, exactly when to advertise. And you can see in black and white that makes sense. There's going to be an ROI. And they go, yeah, I can see it. And, are you going to do it? Well, no. Well, why? Well, because I'm scared. I don't want to borrow money. Borrowing money is bad. I was always told that debt is bad. And it's like, okay, well, I better learn how to coach people through the beliefs or the spreadsheet doesn't fucking matter. And like, don't make a killer spreadsheet, but like it's 10% of what we do now because so much of it is just in your head.
Yeah. Like you can teach strategy all day long, but unless someone's in the right mindset to implement the strategy doesn't matter.
It doesn't. And they'll even say like, yeah, that makes sense consciously, but unconsciously, something is stopping me, or they may use different language, but that's what they're saying.
Right.
Totally. Unconsciously there's a block. And so I started to get like, hey, how can we find out what those blocks are, how to get past them? That's where I started learning about trauma work and really getting into some deep shit. And now, man, it doesn't matter what we got to do, man. I'll blast it with energy if I have to.
No.
Some of these things take 10 seconds. It just depends what you're open to, right?
Yeah.
If you're open to energy, we'll blast it with energy. If you want to use neuro-linguistic programming and visualize a timeline, we'll do that. If you want to do somatic release, we'll do that.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. But eventually we're getting back to the spreadsheet. It's like, this is what you said you wanted to do.
Yeah, that's so true. And I haven't ever come across somebody who has not had mindset issues along the way. It's everyone, myself included.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, half the time, I was talking to another coach friend about this the other day. It's like half the time you're sitting in a session with somebody and you got your professional coach face on, but they're saying shit where I'm going, ooh, me too. I'm not saying me too. I'm holding space with them as a client, but I'm thinking, need to explore later. That maybe I also do not feel worthy of being hot by losing weight. So like maybe I should,
That's so true. It is so true. Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. Well, I think that's why it's so great being in groups and working with coaches because you're not alone. You don't feel so alone. And when you're out in the world trying to do it alone and your friends or your partner are not entrepreneurs, they don't get it. They really don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of going back to that original, like you might lose people when you start going on this personal growth and like the business grows, your life changes.
Yeah.
First of all, like all my friends with regular jobs, it was hard. They'd be like, oh, like you said, you're making hundreds of thousands. I'm like, yeah, but I'm spending hundreds of thousands.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, there is a lot of cash churning in and out of this organization.
Yes, definitely.
That
Yes.
doesn't mean anything about like what I'm taking home. In fact, I try to really take the bare minimum home because whatever cash I take, I pay taxes on.
Yeah, I know. That is true. Yeah, I know. That is very true. I'm the same. I always meet with my tax person in September and I'm like, what do I need to invest in order to bring this down? And what am I looking at? And actually this year I got a little lazy. So I'm actually going to have a big tax bill, I think this year, knock on wood. But in other years, I've always made sure that I'm taking as little possible and in spending and investing and growing and all the things.
Yeah, I'm just like, where else can I put this? That's where my money can make money instead of just like bringing it home where my money costs me money.
Right. Right.
All right, side note. But when you start to do all this, like your friends don't understand. Sometimes we lose a spouse, right? Sometimes we lose. I lost a lot of folks in my professional circle actually because I shifted enough that I'm a lot different than I was 5 years ago. My beliefs are different. I've been talking about this on the show, so people listening have heard this, but the way that I just perceive politics, et cetera, has shifted. And I used to be just a very vocal activist person, and people who got to know me that way don't know who I am now and don't appreciate the shit. It's gotta be okay.
Yeah, you do lose a lot of people. Definitely. You lose a lot of people. Family, that's a question I get too in my group programs is, what about family? Like how do you deal with family? And I think, I don't know about you, but it's been interesting. Just as an example, like my sister, she unfollowed me on social media. And when I started writing a book, there was a lot of, I think, jealousy there because other people in my family are writers and I wasn't supposed to be the writer they were, right? So I think there was a lot of like, I got to the point where I just stopped. I don't talk about my business when I go home. If they have questions they want to ask, great. Otherwise I don't. And usually I don't get questions. So it's like, you have to find that balance of how do you navigate the relationship and what do you talk about versus what do you not talk about around people that you want to continue to have a relationship with. And 9 times out of 10 with my family, that's me not talking about anything that's going on in my business, which is really interesting, but people get funny.
And also, I think we can lose sight of what's really important when we start doing really well, making a lot of money, everything's going. There's that kind of problematic behavior. I'm not saying you did this, but I definitely did this. And a lot of us do this. The problematic behavior of going home and being like, everyone in the house needs to like now shuffle around what I'm going to do because I am the important entrepreneur and I'm bringing home the rest. That sucks. That's shitty. You do that. But then it's like, no one really fucking cares. I mean, they might be interested at first.
Yeah,
but I did really this crazy thought experiment a few years ago where I was having like a bad day and I posted on, I think it was Facebook, and I was just like, hey, like I'm having a bad day. I was real vulnerable. Having a bad day. If I ever did anything that helped you in your life, could you just comment and tell me what I did? And I was expecting at that, because I was far enough in my business, I was expecting people to be like, you made me a millionaire and you really taught me how to transform my life. And that was not what I got. And it was a humbling experience. I got dozens of comments that were like, hey, we were at a work event one time and I wasn't feeling well and I was sitting down in the corner and you're the only person that came over and checked on me.
Aww.
Yeah, it was stuff like that. And it was like, oh, when I started that new job where we used to work together, you're the only person that reached out to me and asked if I had any questions before I started or whatever. It was like all these things like that I was like, hey, I'm a way better person than I thought. So,
right? Those are the things that matter.
Things like I'm not, and being like, this is the shit that matters.
Right, for sure. That's the important stuff.
Like, how can we be kind in the world and be considerate of each other and love each other? And that's what your friends and family care about. And if you feel like sometimes you're getting successful and losing touch with your friends and family, it might be they don't understand. It might also be like, I'm being a dick. Because now I'm coming in here as if I'm more important than everybody else because that's how it feels in the business.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's a whole dynamic shift. I mean, it just changes your life in so many ways. It's a constant learning experience. Yeah.
And in order to get past a certain point, you have to be willing to look at yourself and go, is this turning me into somebody different?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have that fear. And, I guess I've been really conscious of that also. Like, I think having money and growing money has made me more of who I've wanted to be. But I do think that it's turned people the other way too.
Well, it's just an amplifier, right? It just amplifies whatever's going on in your life. And that's when when we started this, we were talking about, well, there's sometimes people that make lots of money and they're miserable.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Because if that's your only why is how can I make as much money as possible, that's going to be kind of a miserable thing to do. Probably going to be grinding it out on something you don't really care about. I had a professional acquaintance once that made a lot of money doing like managed care facilities. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, what got you into that? Like, you have a heart for the elderly? And he's just like, no, we knew we'd make a lot of money. So we got invested in and we're making a lot of it. But he was grinding out. He was miserable. And I was, I look at something like that and I go, there's no amount of money that's worth it to me to be miserable in my life and to to hate my work and to like hate 80% of my day.
Same. And I think that also comes to, as entrepreneurs, we leave money on the table all the time. Like, I've had coaches tell me, you have $1 million offer here and you need to have this level of program here and that'll bring in 500,000. And at one point I had this like higher level mastermind. It was bringing in $500,000 a year and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the way it was structured. I didn't enjoy the way I was running it. And yeah, I was bringing in $500,000, but I called it. I cut it. I was like, I'd rather have that time free on my calendar than have that $500,000 in my bank account. And so I cut it out. So I think, we leave money on the table all the time to design it in a way that's going to work for us, which I think is really cool. It's
so important. And even from the very, very startup stage, I work on this with people. Like, when I first started this business, what took me from, $10,000 months to $100,000 months was to get more selective and to get picky. And to put this is like 10 years ago, but to put those boundaries of like, I only work with people who are X, Y, and Z. And it's so scary because you're turning away business, but it preserves you to be just the best. Cause it's shortened now. My shortcut is I only work with people I love. But like, I am weird with my clients. I'm telling my clients I love them on a regular basis because we have an emotional intimacy that has developed.
Oh, I love that.
I don't feel that way about somebody. Like, I don't feel personally invested in what they're trying to do. I'm not the coach for them.
No,
man.
Same. Yep.
And it's so what would you say to the startup entrepreneurs out there who have that one client that's eating up all their time and bandwidth and they roll their eyes every time they call, but they can't get rid of that client because that's all their money? What would you say?
Go find another one. Let them go. And then it actually creates space for the next. I've found that. Have you? Where whenever you've like fired a client or let go of a client, there is always an incredible one that, it may take 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, but an incredible one always takes its place. That is what I've seen time and time and time again. And I look at that as like, it almost feels like dirty money. I don't want it. I don't want that money. I'd rather, give them a refund or just let them go than continue to work with them. So I always just say, let it go and another one will come in its place as long as you're doing the right marketing.
And in business, also in, romantic relationships, friendships, money, like letting money go and more money will come, like completely. One of my favorite old wives' wisdoms is never wait on a man or a bus. Another one will be along in 10 minutes.
I love it. All right, let's add clients to that because it is true. Like, it is absolutely true. And that just also means that you're freeing that person up to find the coach that is right for them. So you're doing them a favor also, and you're doing the partner a favor, and you're doing the spouse a favor. And it's like I said, it's liberating. Yeah, it's liberating all souls involved.
That's right. Liberating all souls to find what's best for them and realizing that you don't always know what's best for other people.
And the team member, you're liberating that team member as well because they're not a good fit for you. Yeah.
He found a better job that was a better fit. I wouldn't know because he lost his mind at me and deleted me. Sometimes being a boss is about people saying, go fuck yourself. And you go, okay.
Yeah, that is true. Amen, sister. Amen.
And on that note, we're about out of time. Erica, where can people find you on social, online, if they're interested in working with you or learn more about you?
Yeah, amazing. My website is just ericacarrico.com and everything is on there. Free trainings, all the offerings, that kind of thing. And I'm pretty active on Instagram, which is, just Erica Lynn Carico. And those two places, you'll find most of what you need. Awesome. We so appreciate you being on the show today. It was fun to get to know you on the air. Yes, you too. This was great. We actually do have a lot in common. Yes. Angel was right. Should do it. We should do it again. I'm down for that. We could cover, I think we have a lot to talk about. I think so. Everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time.